Welcome back to TFC Unplugged. I know that is Sean with his new haircut. I forgot to mention it earlier. Nice. Took 10 years off his age with his new haircut, so it's good. Welcome back. And as you can see, we're in a pretty cheerful mood and a pretty wild day yesterday, Sean. And let's get into it because, I think it was probably one of the best games of the year in MLS. And you braved the weather. I didn't. I chickened out and I didn't want the drive. So, what do you think?
Where shall I begin? I guess I actually almost chickened out myself. I have to tell you this story because you weren't there yesterday. So, left my house. It was raining. And as I'm heading on the bus, I'm looking at the rain. It's just coming down. I'm just like, what am I doing? I want to go watch this team play, but I'm going to be soaking wet. I'm layered, so it's not like I'm the cold I'm afraid of. It's just the fact that, and I did bring a poncho, the cheap dollar store one. So if it was coming down, I could use that. But it was just the weather wasn't motivating. We'll say that, right? So anyways, I get to switch buses and I see this random stranger I just realized he's going to the game, got his TFC hat on. And I look at him and I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we going down? And he's just like, bro, I don't know. I've stepped to the third back and I think the two of us just talking, the bus coming and just continuing our conversation, we ended up convincing ourselves. And lo and behold, as we're on the bus, the rain stopped. So thankfully, shout out to that stranger on the bus that kind of helped me, convince me to keep going. And we made it down to a tale of two halves, a game where the ref made it about him instead of taking control early on, especially after the foul, the first red card. That's when you really need to take control because you're going to have two teams that are now, a little bit more intense, a little bit more, the aggression is there. And we saw how Raheem's reaction right after that, where he almost got himself in some trouble when he pushed their player who was already out of bounds. And that was just a retaliation after he got fouled, right? So tale two halves, interesting. But being there, the comeback, feeling the low of being down 2-0 to the comeback, it was you haven't felt like that in a long time, honestly, right? And I think that's what the fans that were there, shout out to all of you that braved the weather. It actually just, as the game went on, the weather improved and you got a little bit of sun tried to creep out, but the team did not give up. And that's something that everyone in the TFC fan base knows that we've seen far too often. Late game collapses, where we're down 2-0 and it looked like, this game could get ugly. And, good on them. Yes. Did that second red card or the second yellow, which ended up being another red for Colorado, did that hurt them? Massively, right? Could you say that really is what turned the game? Most likely,
well,
right?
Let's just get into that because you know what? We have it here, right? It's 3 red cards that turned this match upside down. Really, what it was, right? Because at the end of the day, you see the first red card, and I don't think anyone, if you watch it enough times, you were in the stand, I was at home. We'll talk about that later, but I text you and said it's a straight red because he comes through him, he's high on his ankle, it's an ugly tackle. And I think my next text was, Raheem's lucky he got up from that because that looks like an ankle breaker. So that one goes to VAR. It is a red card. It's a red card all day. And I don't think anyone can argue with that. The kid mistimed it. He's high on the foot. It's, the angle. The more you watch it, the worse it gets. And it's the definition of what a red card should be. So that's that one first. And my worry is, you just mentioned it. Raheem then went and kind of pushed the guy into the boards and, 5 minutes after. And you could see he was really irate. And what I would say is that's one of the things that I put on Robin Fraser yesterday. Is at the end of the day, at halftime, you should have just said, let's take him off. Let's put Pereira on. But he's clearly frustrated and he's clearly upset about that tackle. It's clearly gone into his head. And the first thing you should say as a coach at halftime is, look, we're up a man. Let's not give them a reason to go and give the ref a reason to send one of us off. Sure enough, 4 minutes into the second half, I literally, I tweeted it. I went to go and make coffee because I was at home and I was doing something with my son. We were watching the game, and then I'm like, I'll go make coffee. I went upstairs. I made coffee. I came back down. We'd lost a man and 2 goals.
Yeah.
In the time it took to boil a kettle to make a coffee. Like, I was literally like, what the heck? But the red cards are what turned the game. So then you mentioned the second one, which is the Raheem one. Raheem's just, it's a penalty. It's a he pushes him in the back. He's the last man. It's a goal scoring opportunity. He's outside the box, so it's not a penalty. But it's a free kick. Obviously, we know what happens with that. But we're also down to 10 men. The third red card, which, then swinging it back in our favor. If we were sat here, if that went against us yesterday, I would sit here absolutely ripping because it's soft. Not even, it's barely any contact.
Yes. It's justified to give us the free kick, but that's as much as it should have been.
The free kick is
generous.
The free kick is generous.
But I mean, once you blow the whistle, you kind of have to stick to your guns. But you did not. There was definitely
no need for a second yellow.
Yeah, I can agree. Like, we benefited 100%, but we can actually take a step back and be honest about that call. And this is where I go back to the referee. And there's a few other calls, especially in the second half, where I just felt he had no control of the game. Where calls it like, how are you not blowing that, but then you're blowing this? Like, and it was both ways. It wasn't as if either team was technically we did end up benefiting because of the second yellow, but he was egregious all second half, and it was for both teams.
Yeah, he was wildly inaccurate and wildly like there's some tackles in there that you're like, that might have been a red card more than the other one. And there's someone there where he's like, how are you not calling that? Like, there's a couple of times we absolutely flattened some of their players, and there was just play on, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing that drives me a little bit nutty with MLS referees. I always feel like they're betting on these games. I always feel like there is something else that's going on here, because I tweeted this yesterday. If you watch the game, whether you're in the stadium or at home, you watch the game, you look at the cards and look at the stats, the game didn't reflect that amount of cards. Like, I've seen punch-ups that have got less red cards than that game. I didn't understand how. I think we end up with 1 red card, 3 yellows. They ended up with 2 reds, and I think it was 3 yellows or 4 yellows, something like that. Like, it wasn't that kind of game, and there was not, other than the first red card, there wasn't anything that was anything that's really worthy of sending him off, right?
And you know what? If you were a casual observer and you were to hear the score line and you were to see, you would be like, there were that many red cards. This must have been a dirty, physical type of football game. And even if you were to see the first red card, you would it wasn't an intentional it was a bad tackle. He was late, and it was it was as simple as that. He wasn't intentionally trying to injure him, but it was a simple bad and straight red card. There's no if, ands, or buts about it, but it wasn't like a dirty game where players are looking to injure each other. It was rough. It wasn't that kind of match. And yet the red cards, when you see 3, that's the first thing that's going to come to your mind. Like, I don't care who you are.
You think you're going to get a really good punch up. That's what you're thinking, right? You're thinking you're going to be an absolute, they absolutely kick the crap out of each other. What we did get, though, is probably one of the most entertaining games of the year. This might be the wildest match of 2026. I think it's, going to go. You need to go a long way to top this one, because it kind of had everything, right? We just mentioned we had 3 red cards. You had a ref that seemed to be, I don't know what he was on yesterday, but the ref was all over the shop. And
he was auditioning for the World Cup. He was auditioning
for something. I think he was he could have got on Dancing with the Stars with some of those decisions yesterday. But I think the thing that everyone's going to remember this game for is the Zack Steffen own goal, which I was sat there, so we'll talk about how your reaction was, because I was sat there and the ball's at halfway, and suddenly, the ball comes in and it's just hoof backwards, and it's a routine pass.
But it was no. Actually, hold on 1 second. It was a player just trying to he wasn't passing it back to his keeper.
Just trying to clear.
It was just trying to clear. So Zack Steffen could have picked the ball up. He would not have been carded for it because it was not an intentional pass back. That you could clearly tell he was trying to. It looked like he was just trying to hoof the ball, and it was a calamity of errors. Like watching it in live play, you couldn't believe what you just saw, because it looked as if, like, when I first saw it, it's like, ooh, that looks a little high, and I'm thinking, like, could that go over his head? Then I'm like, okay, no, keeper's got this. No, he doesn't have this. It became a calamity of errors, all in a split second, and it was beautiful to watch because, I mean, for us to tie the game, you couldn't have asked for a better way for us to tie the game.
Well, you know what? If for anyone that hasn't seen it, if you go on our shorts channel, don't forget to like and subscribe and all those fun things down at the bottom. But it's on our shorts channel, so you get to see it on there. It's really good. It's you know what? It's nice when it happens to somebody else, because you and me were there when Gavin got lobbed from halfway line in Hamilton, right? Or as they call him on MLS, Gavran, which is driving me bonkers, by the way. Gavran. But anyway, if you go on a shorts, it's on there. It's a really good cheer me up kind of moment. So it was. Come on, man! It was a wild game, and I just gotta say this because somebody texted me yesterday. They're like, somebody that watches the show a lot and says to me, you know what, last year you said you'd rather have games that were like 3-2 helter-skelter, all burnouts, than the boring 1-0s. Am I not wrong? Like, is this not the best? Like, come on, man. Like,
okay,
even if we'd have lost 3-2 yesterday, that would have been still a banging game, because at the end of the day, it was just entertainment, because you just didn't know what happened. You didn't know what was going to happen. And I love that. That's like the Montreal game, the playoff game from 2016. And I said that yesterday to somebody. It's like watching that, where it's helter-skelter football. And I rather much have helter-skelter football than Robin Fraser boring the pants off me with trying to defend a 1-0 lead or losing 1-0 and not doing anything.
Well, unfortunately, you weren't there, because I definitely was on one yesterday, and you can ask the guys in our section. Like, I was vocal yesterday. Like, my voice at the end of yesterday's game was like, I went straight home. It wasn't, I didn't hit up the up in Liberty Village post game. I needed to hydrate, rest, and relax last night, because sore throat, voice was, and I'm still feeling it today. Like, there's no doubt about it. But I miss those days. Right? Because again, like you said, whether we won or lost, it was just like the excitement, the passion, like, again, for all those that braved it, and you know what, even when we're down, because there was a vibe when you're down 2-0 that, like, you know what, maybe I should just look at catching transit early before the rush, right? But we stuck it out, and it was well worth it. And trust me, it felt nice. Back-to-back wins at BMO. It's been ages that we could say that. Yeah. You know that. I know that. Everyone watching knows that. Shout out to Martin Bailey, who came out with some stats. If you're not following this guy on Twitter, like, he is the stat king when it comes to TFC. And, like, it was one of those matches that, and we're going to touch on stadium versus home, but it was one of those games where being there, doesn't matter where you are in the stadium, was 10 times better than what you could imagine it was like watching at home.
Yeah, there is perks to watching at home, because because in the stadium, and we've obviously done it many times, we have no clue what's going on in the stadium, which is always a bit of again, it's one of the things I hate. It doesn't, they don't tell you what's going on. You're kind of guessing what's going on. We don't have any replays and reviews.
Yeah.
And even if you take the first red card, like, I text you in the stand, I'm like, it's red. It should be red, because it is, right? And that's kind of nice sometimes, and we do it too when we sometimes have people at home watching, because at the end of the day, like, I love going to BMO, but at the moment with the weather, the hike, and the 3-hour drive, it's it gets a little bit much sometimes, especially on a long weekend with family events and stuff. So at the end of the day, I was like, it was one of those ones. I saw the weather like just before kickoff, and I was like, I think I made the right choice today. And then I was watching the game, and then obviously, at halftime, I was like, you know what? I made the right choice. Yeah, we'll probably win 1-0 or 2-0, and it'll be good, but it's not any. Like, I was completely wrong because the second half was just absolutely bonkers. But you can't say we weren't entertained. You got 5 goals, 2 red cards in the second half, and a partridge in a pear tree. And yeah, there is at times where home is good for that, but it's like the other game I missed. I missed one game the entire year of 2023, and it was the Charlotte home game where Insigne, Benedeschi, and Bradley put on the greatest show in 40 minutes.
We don't talk. Remember, I quite remember that day because I as well missed that game because we all got COVID in Montreal.
Montreal in the karaoke bar.
So if you haven't heard that story, yeah, because that was back in our that was that was one of the best away trips. I don't care. Yes, we did end up all getting 7 of us got COVID. It was
7 people COVID.
But it was honestly it was one of the best away trips because we just had so much fun. And yeah.
But no, it's good. Like at the end of the day, I'm glad it was good for you. I'm glad it's and I'm glad it's good for the team. But there is one thing I will say though, like regardless of the outcome, yesterday was a bit of a bonkers one. But there is something to be said of the fact that we didn't really there's a lot of mistakes in that midfield yesterday. I thought Quajo played really well, which I've been a big criticism of him of late. I thought he played really well. They really missed Mihailovic. That was evident, very, very evident. Shallowy, I think, is same as every week. He's absolutely outstanding, I think, so far. I do think though the fact that they scored 2 goals and we looked a little shaky there at times, I think there is some concern. I think jokes aside and seriousness, I think there is some things to be concerned about. I tweeted about the depth of the squad when we were not winning. I think we were down 2-0. I looked at that bench and they didn't look a lot of creativity. They looked like a lot of young potential, but not a lot of creativity, not a lot of proven players to come on and help the team. So again, I think that's a concern. If Mihailovic's injury, I haven't looked at the status of it, but at the end of the day, if he's going to miss a couple of games, you've got to have guys to step in. But there's not a lot on that bench. And again, this is kind of I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I am going to be pragmatic and say there's not a lot of options on the bench that could really help the team. Do you know what I mean? So.
Well, here's what I'll say to this, right? Because if we look at our starting 11 yesterday, Edwards is not our main starting left back. Pereira, look, I liked what I saw out of him for the 40 minutes he played in the second half. I think he brings a lot of dynamic, especially on the attacking front. He looks hungry. And we're missing Mihailovic, right? So you can basically say, I would assume Kerr, who has looked to me a lot better since kind of he's moved out wide. He looks a lot more involved with the link up. He looks like the kind of player that he should have been versus what we've seen of him in the past. Clearly, he was never meant to be a number 9. He should have been a winger. He should have been played out wide. Play players at their strengths. Stop trying to convert players. Anyways, Kerr would be a man coming off of it. So Raheem, Kerr, and one of the guys, at least those 2, are your starters, right?
Yeah.
Mihailovic should be there, and Pereira. So our starting 11 looks decent. They can run with a lot of teams in the league. So if you're looking at who's coming off the bench as first options, the attacker will be either Kerr or Emilio, right? Depending on who you're up against, what you're looking for. We don't have that threat in the midfield. I think that's our word, is that who are you bringing on? Right? Etienne?
Yeah.
I like Henry, but Henry's more, on the wing. He's a winger versus really somebody who's, controlling the play. So, we don't have somebody, and that's where we're going to have to address in the summer, right? So I'm not going to criticize, say, Hernandez for not doing that, because at the end of the day, I think he's addressed areas that were a little bit more crucial, bringing in Kusevic as a defense center back when he realized right away Kosi wasn't working was brilliant, because he's been outstanding since he's come here, right?
Yeah, I
Zimmerman,
thought he was great yesterday. I thought he
right?
he also dodged a couple of yellow cards yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Compared to Zimmerman, he's my only concern with Zimmerman. He's a little too physical, and he makes some hard fouls a little too often, that like he got another yellow yesterday. And I think that's why Robin realized that, took him out and brought Monlouis in, because he realized, if I can't risk another red. And that was one of the few times we can say, you got it right, from a coaching standpoint, where you're
Yeah,
reading the
but you know
game.
what? I think that's also because I think it was Navarro up front for them yesterday, was giving them some grief, right? And he gave Monlouis quite a hard time, when he came on. And I think that's just the type of workhorse kind of player he is, that he's a little bit niggly, right? And I gotta say, he was going down and flopping around and doing all kinds of stuff.
For sure. He was playing for, like, looking to get the defender in trouble, right? But my point is, I'm not worried really when I look at our defensive options compared to and our attacking options right now. But I am concerned in the middle of the pitch. You've been saying that from the beginning, and I think Hernandez actually did kind of speak on that recently, where he kind of said, something about addressing it in the summer if the need. I think he knows the need's there, but again, trying to, like, because it's important for this club to get the right character fit as we're moving forward.
Well, you've got more options in the summer. At the end of the day, you've got more options. It's a summer window. You've got more options. You're going to have a shift to the different format in the following year. Look, at the end of the day, they've got money. They've got money to spend. Obviously, we haven't talked about it because we haven't been back since, we sent Cozy Thompson to Colorado, which was ironic. I thought he would play yesterday just for the.
Apparently, his paperwork hasn't. I'm assuming his U.S. visa or whatever he needs, work permit wise, to play in the U.S. Yeah, that hasn't gone through yet, so that's the only reason he wasn't.
That's not a shocker with the state of the U.S. at the moment. So yeah, no, that makes sense. But I think at the end of the day, I think for the most part, like, we do have a little bit of money to spend. I think it is kind of crying out for, you do need a backup for Yordi. Because I think at the end of the day, TFC missed him yesterday. And one guy that I think did miss him yesterday was Josh Sargent. I think he missed that link-up play. But again, Josh Sargent's winner. We got to talk about it, because, man, that boy got up.
That's what we paid him for, though. We pay him to score goals like that, right? Like, yes, he probably should have scored early in the game when he missed that rebounded one, in the first few minutes. But you know what? We got almost a full 90 out of him. He played 80 something minutes, and it was a hard fought, well earned game winner, right? Like, ideally, you're right. There's a few times where you want someone to be able to really find his sweet spot, where he likes to receive the ball, where he likes to finish, things like that. But you also see where he is a threat, and if we can get our set plays down, because I thought we were extremely horrible on our corner kicks yesterday, till that final one, we actually got in a good position to allow our players to attack it. And if I'm correct, that side is where we scored. The corner kicks coming from that side is also where Zimmerman scored. So I think that might be where we need to play. Like, if it's you're on the left side kicking in that corner, our target man got to be ready for it, right?
Well,
because
you know what it is with that end, though, Sean, is because the wind's whipping through there, right? We know that as we're in it all the time because we stand right behind that goal. We know how the way is with the wind, and they were mentioning it on commentary a bunch of times. Like the wind is whipping on that end. We saw it on the first goal with Richie, which I'm like, I said to you, there's no way on God's green earth is he trying to put that in the net. He was trying to whip that in, and that just came off. I think it came off his boot wrong, and the wind just went whoop like that. Like because
At first I thought it was a cross, and then I keep watching the replay. Like when I got home, I watched the highlights. And I'm like, was he actually trying?
He's jumped across it. If you look at his reaction is what tells me everything you need to know. It's his reaction. He's like, that went in. Like that's. And you need that sometimes, right? But at the end of the day, I think he went to wrap his foot around it and whip the ball across. And I think it's come off the end of his toe this way, and it's gone, and the wind's just assisted it. Because poor Zack Steffen, I think he's going to cry after watching the highlights of that one because he got done at his near post. He then got done with that howler on the second. If he's in goal for the US, I don't think he's in the US national team anymore, but there's probably a reason for that now.
Yeah, I don't think he's part of the US national team. But again, as a keeper, you have to just kind of forget that game. You don't even want to look back at it. And if you're a coach, you kind of, whether you let the rest of the team, you go over their mistakes, the keeper's the one player that you just don't, it's over, move on. Don't even no highlight. No, let's not review nothing about it because keepers are very mental, right? And that will weigh on him. He needs to move on. He needs to forget it. He needs to already be looking at who we play next week. Get that out of your mind because it's the kind of game that you feel like you're the reason your team lost, right? The first goal, you feel like how did he get that by me? The second one, how did I screw that up? Nothing you could have done about the third goal, but you still feel like you lost your team the game when you're up 2-0. Going into the 70th minute of the game?
Yeah, something like that. But again, I think it just comes down to it. Like, we said it a lot last year. We said it definitely in the last 2 years that we want games where you want to see some fight, you want to see some heart, you want to be entertained. Like, I am very much the person that wants to be entertained by my team. And yesterday was the first time in a very, very long time I was entertained. Is that sustainable, that style helter-skelter? Because no, really good teams will absolutely mull you. And I think that's always my concern. But my positive is the fact how did we get out of there with 3 points? You can, I don't know who you thank the most, the wind, Steffen, the referee, but TFC got a whole lot of help yesterday and a whole lot of luck, and we got 3 points. And you know what? Back-to-back wins, we'll take it. And good for you for braving the weather. I didn't necessarily feel like it, but I am pretty happy with my decision to stay home. But I wish I'd have seen that goal. I would have enjoyed that from the reverse angle.
Well, like I said, being there is one of those games where you're glad you were there, regardless of the weather. Like, yeah, it sucked out, but it got better as the day went on. And you and I used to say this a lot on the Tunnel Club, right? Is that we used to hate the losses because going on the Tunnel Club was miserable because it was just negative. We can finally have shows where we're smiling, we're enjoying the vibe, we're loving the wins. And, to all those Colorado Rapid fans, you know what? Hard loss yesterday because you feel gutted. Like, you're going to walk away.
You know what? Just a comment on them. They look like a really good young team. Right. They look really good. And that's a new coach. They I was listening to them on commentary. Like, he's just got them playing, and I think you can't really look at that and say, you know what? I think they're 8th in their conference. They haven't got a ton of money. They've got a really crap ownership. Yeah, I think it's the same guy that owns one of the other EPL teams, right? But at the end of the day, I think they've got not a lot of ambition. They've not got a big fan base. I think, you know what? I thought they were a really solid young team. And, if it wasn't for a couple of howlers and the referee, I think they probably would have won that game. And as I said, if this was on the other foot, I would be here today absolutely ripping on that ref because I think he really did screw Colorado over more than he did us yesterday. But I think at the end of the day, you know what, we are deserving of some of those because of the last 5 years, we've had some absolute stonkers against us. So, you know what, it's about time we got the upside of it on it. So, but they were a very good team.
And I'll say this, they have another young center back in their making, that Harrington fella. He doesn't look it. Like if you look at him, how he walks, he looks lanky and a little awkward, but he's solid. And he's got to be in his late teens, early 20s. I don't know how old he is, but you know, that's
they
where
kept
boys
comparing him to Bombito, right? They kept saying he's another one. You know, TFC, make another trade. Just saying.
But the thing is, it's like, and to touch on them, like they have, he's not the only young kid. Like if you look, like watching them up close, starters are probably under the age of 24, 20, or probably I'd even say 22 and under. You can see that they're young kids, but they're believing in them and giving them the opportunities to win or lose, make the mistakes, but they're not just like yanking them early. And this is how you're going to develop young players, right? And that, at least give them that credit, because some of the kids on that team will be ballers in the future. Like not necessarily European, but they'll easily have a solid career.
Yeah, no, very good. Do you know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, there's something to look at. But yeah, no, I think we'll wrap it up and we'll call it a day. And
happy to be in a playoff picture as we stand. I know it's early, but you know what? We haven't been able to look at that and be like, damn, you know, like that's 3 wins. Yeah,
I'll take it.
So,
we're climbing. We're moving and grooving.
Yep. Cincinnati's coming. They're going to look to get a little payback next week. Are we going to be ready? It'll be a different team, though. Like the team that we beat them isn't the same team they're coming to BMO to face. So if we're healthy, could be another good game.
Yep, and I think that's the thing. You know, you've got to turn up every week, and I think that's, you know, one thing that we've said that, you know, like, you know, you dodged one this week, but you know, just go and follow up with another win and build the confidence, because ultimately what it will do, it will start to build the trust and the belief back in the team, and you know, the fan support that seems to be, you know, will make us believe again. And I think that's the biggest part of it too. So no, I think it's great. On to next week, and let's see how we go. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with us, and leave us comments. We always love them. So, you know, please don't forget to do all that fun stuff for us. Sean, anything?
That's it. Again, shout out to all the fans that brave the weather, and a lot of you guys get out there. This is TFC has deservedly so earned a lot of criticism over the past few years, but I'm a firm believer that this team is heading in the right direction again, and get on board and support these guys, because past few games that we watch, that's exactly it. That's
fun
exactly
to watch again, which I think that might be what we all need, right? A fun team to watch gets you believing. So no, let's take it. Let's be happy with that, and we'll call it a day.
And let's make BMO a fortress again. Simple as that. We have the games to do it. Let's do it.
True. It looks like a fortress now.
There you go. You know what? I will say this. It reminds me of what an actual football stadium should look like when all around has stands, and it looks like what it should look like. So, you know, it's unfortunate that the north end is a majority of it's only temporary, but it gives you a sneak peek of what it would look like if we were just a football only stadium and we didn't have to convert for the CFL. This is not a knock on them. I'm just saying, like, you know, the vibe yesterday when I'm looking around, having it all closed off, and well, for the most part, but you know what I mean? Like, you growing up in England, seeing stadiums with all 4 sides, proper stands, like, yes, these are temporary, but the view just makes it feel like, oh, this could be good if these were actually permanent and not temporary. So that's all I'll say. We'll leave it at that. Have a great week, everybody. Next week on to Cincinnati's coming here, but head out to BMO. I know I'll be there. Hopefully, no be there, rain or shine.
Mm.
All right. Have a good week. Take care.
Okay.
Like what you hear? Smash that like button, subscribe now.